The Trump family is no stranger to the spotlight, but one member stands apart: Barron Trump. The youngest of the clan, Barron is an enigma, rarely heard, seldom seen, and entirely unlike his outspoken siblings. His towering height and quiet demeanor spark intrigue every time he appears. But who is he beyond the public gaze? What's it like growing up as a Trump while staying almost invisible? And will Barron embrace the family legacy or carve his own path? Behind closed doors lies the story of a young man the world is eager to understand. Barron's early years were anything but ordinary, even if they seemed quieter than most might expect for someone in his position. Born in 2006 to Donald and Melania Trump, Barron was immediately thrust into the world of wealth, privilege, and intense public scrutiny. Yet, unlike his older siblings, who embraced the media attention from a young age, Barron's early childhood was fiercely protected by his mother. Melania, who once described herself as a full-time mom, took great care to shield Barron from the frenzy surrounding his father's business and eventual political career. It was a deliberate choice that helped him grow up with a semblance of normalcy, or at least as normal as life can be when you live in a gilded penthouse at the top of Trump Tower. Even as Donald Trump's political ambitions began to take shape, Barron remained an outlier. His appearances on the campaign trail were few and far between, often limited to standing quietly next to his parents during key moments. Unlike his siblings, who were actively involved in their father's campaigns, Barron rarely made headlines. And perhaps that's precisely why people became so curious about him. Who was this quiet figure standing tall, sometimes literally, alongside the famously outspoken Trump family? As Donald Trump's presidency began in 2016, Barron moved into an even more exclusive world: the White House. But even then, he maintained his low profile. While his predecessors, like Sasha and Malia Obama, occasionally stole the show with their charm, Barron opted to stay behind the scenes. The White House wasn't just a home for him, it was a fortress that shielded him from the media's constant gaze. And for a while it worked. But as he grew older, his public appearances became more frequent, and with them came more questions. Who is Barron Trump really, and what role does he play in the Trump family dynamic? One thing that sets Barron apart from his siblings is his complete lack of overt interest in public life. While Ivanka, Don Jr., and Eric were busy carving out their spaces in business and politics, Barron seemed content to remain in the background. His disinterest in the limelight might seem odd, given his family name, but it's also part of what makes him so intriguing. It's not just about what we see, it's about what we don't see. And that's where the mystery of Barron Trump lies. His rare public appearances have always sparked fascination, particularly because of his striking height and reserved demeanor. By the time he was a teenager, Barron was already towering over his parents, drawing comments from both admirers and critics. Donald Trump, never one to shy away from bragging, often mentioned his son's height during interviews, almost as if it were a badge of honor. But behind those public observations lies a more private story, one that begins to unfold when you look at Barron's life away from the cameras. While his siblings were busy playing prominent roles in Trump Organization projects or making waves in the media, Barron was quietly carving out his own identity. By all accounts, he has always been more private and introspective, a stark contrast to the larger-than-life personas of his father and older siblings. Even Melania, who often speaks sparingly about her son, once described him as a mixture of herself and Donald, a blend of her quiet strength and Donald's bold confidence. But is that mix what defines Barron, or is there more to the story? It's said that Barron has always had a close relationship with his mother, one that shaped much of his childhood. Melania's influence on him is undeniable, from her insistence on maintaining a relatively stable home life to her focus on his education. Even as the Trumps moved to the White House, Melania delayed the transition to ensure Barron could finish his school year uninterrupted. It was a small but significant decision, one that underscored her determination to put his needs first, even in the face of intense public scrutiny. As he grew older, Barron's reserved nature began to attract more attention. People couldn't help but wonder what he was like when the cameras weren't rolling. Was he just a quiet, introspective teenager, or did his reserved demeanor hide a more dynamic personality? Those closest to him describe Barron as thoughtful, intelligent, and surprisingly down-to-earth, traits that might come as a surprise given his family's high-profile status. But if there's one thing everyone agrees on, it's this. Barron Trump is far more complex than his public appearances suggest. And so, as the youngest Trump navigates his late teenage years, the questions only grow louder. What role, if any, will he play in the Trump legacy? Will he follow in his father's footsteps, or will he forge a completely different path? The answers may not be clear yet, but one thing is certain. Barron Trump is quietly defining himself in ways that few could have predicted. Barron's apparent preference for staying out of the spotlight became even more evident during his father's campaigns. While Donald Trump was busy dominating the headlines with his rallies and fiery rhetoric, Barron was quietly observing from the sidelines. However, what most people didn't realize was that even from the shadows, Barron had a way of making his presence felt. Family insiders have hinted that Barron played a surprisingly thoughtful role in some of Donald's strategies, especially during the later stages of the campaigns. For instance, Donald Trump's appearances on popular podcasts toward the end of the campaign were reportedly Barron's idea. These podcasts, known for their younger, tech-savvy audiences, were a departure from Trump's usual media engagements, but they proved to be a stroke of genius. The move resonated with young male voters, a demographic that had previously been harder to reach. Jason Miller, a senior campaign advisor, once praised Barron for his ability to identify what would break the internet, calling his suggestions absolute ratings gold. While it's easy to picture Barron as simply tossing out ideas at the dinner table, his contributions seem to have gone deeper than that. Laura Trump, Donald's daughter-in-law, shared that Barron often made thoughtful calls to his father, offering ideas on how to connect with voters. It's an image that challenges the notion of Barron as the silent observer. Instead, it paints him as a young man who is quietly tuned in, capable of understanding trends and presenting fresh perspectives. For a family that thrives on being larger than life, Barron's understated approach is both surprising and effective. Yet even with his behind-the-scenes influence, Barron's reserved nature stands in stark contrast to the rest of his family. The Trumps are known for their outspoken personalities and willingness to engage in public debates, but Barron seems to operate on a completely different wavelength. His siblings, Ivanka, Don Jr., and Eric, have built their careers in the public eye, leveraging the Trump brand at every opportunity. Barron, on the other hand, appears to be taking a more strategic approach by avoiding the limelight altogether. This dynamic has led to some interesting family interactions. While the older Trump siblings have occasionally clashed over business and politics, Barron remains largely removed from those tensions. Instead, he's carved out a unique space within the family, one where his voice carries weight without the need for public proclamations. It's a strategy that seems to mirror his mother's influence. Melania Trump, much like her son, is known for her quiet but intentional demeanor. Though she rarely speaks about family matters, her actions often speak volumes, and it's clear that Barron has adopted a similar mindset. The influence of Melania on Barron's personality and values cannot be overstated. From a young age, she ensured that Barron was surrounded by structure and stability, even as the world around him became increasingly chaotic. During Donald Trump's presidency, Melania was often described as fiercely protective of her son, going so far as to insist on a private, normal childhood, despite their high-profile circumstances. This determination to shield Barron from unnecessary attention shaped not only his upbringing but also his ability to navigate the complexities of being a Trump. Donald, too, has acknowledged Barron's unique qualities, though his praise often veers toward the physical. He frequently mentions Barron's height, joking that his youngest son is taller than everyone and that he's destined for greatness simply by virtue of his stature. While these comments may come off as humorous, they also hint at Donald's pride in Barron's potential. For Donald, who values charisma and presence, Barron's towering figure seems to represent the next generation of the Trump legacy. But Barron's influence extends beyond just his height or occasional campaign insights. Those close to the family describe him as a thoughtful and observant individual with a surprisingly sharp sense of humor. He's said to have a knack for understanding what resonates with people, whether it's a meme circulating online or the latest trends among younger generations. This ability to stay attuned to cultural shifts has made him an unexpected asset, even if he's not the type to shout his ideas from the rooftops. As the 2020 election season unfolded, Barron's presence became slightly more noticeable, though still understated. He was often seen accompanying his parents at key events, his tall frame making him hard to miss. Yet even then, he rarely spoke or engaged with the media, leaving people to speculate about what was going on behind the scenes. It was a deliberate choice, one that seems to reflect not only his personality, but also a deeper understanding of the value of privacy in a world where every word and action is scrutinized. This balance of influence and discretion has made Barron something of an anomaly within his family. While the Trump name is synonymous with boldness and publicity, Barron seems to have mastered the art of staying relevant without being overly exposed. It's a skill that has served him well, particularly in a family dynamic where attention is often seen as a form of currency. By choosing when and how to insert himself into the narrative, Barron has managed to maintain both his privacy and his influence, a rare feat in the Trump household. And yet, for all his efforts to remain in the background, Barron's potential future role within the family remains a topic of endless speculation. Will he eventually step into the spotlight like his siblings? Or will he continue to forge his own path, quietly shaping the Trump legacy from behind the scenes? For now, it seems Barron is content to watch, listen, and wait, leaving us all to wonder what's next for the youngest Trump. Barron's personality has long been a topic of speculation, particularly as he grew from a young boy into a towering teenager who now stands out, even in a family full of larger-than-life characters. While his parents and siblings dominate the news with their business ventures and public personas, Barron remains an enigmatic figure, leading many to wonder if he is more like his father or his mother. The answer, as those close to the family suggest, is a little bit of both. Melania Trump has often referred to Barron as her Little Donald, a nickname she gave him during his childhood. She once shared in an interview that Barron was stubborn and determined, traits that reminded her of his father. Even as a young boy, he displayed a certain level of independence that set him apart. Unlike other children who might be content to follow the lead of their parents, Barron had a way of making his opinions known even if he did so quietly. But Melania also emphasized that he inherited her sense of focus and attention to detail, suggesting that he's not simply a replica of his father, but a unique mix of both parents. That mix of influences is perhaps most evident in the way Barron carries himself in public. Like his mother, he exudes a calm, composed demeanor, rarely showing any emotion during public appearances. Yet there's an undeniable confidence about him, something that seems distinctly Trump-like. It's a quiet confidence, one that doesn't rely on grand gestures or outspoken remarks, but it's there nonetheless. It's as if he's perfectly comfortable being an observer, taking everything in without feeling the need to react. Donald Trump, on the other hand, is far more vocal about his youngest son, though his comments often revolve around Barron's physical attributes. He's a tall guy, very tall, Donald has said on multiple occasions, sometimes joking that Barron is taller than most of his security team. This repeated focus on Barron's height is both amusing and revealing. For Donald, who places a high value on appearances and presence, Barron's statue seems to symbolize strength and potential. Yet it also raises the question of whether Donald truly sees the deeper, more complex aspects of his son's personality. Barron's relationship with his father is one that remains largely private, but there are glimpses of a bond built on mutual respect. While Donald is known for his flamboyant, attention-grabbing style, Barron's quiet nature offers a stark contrast, and perhaps that's why their dynamic works. Barron doesn't compete for the spotlight. Instead, he lets his father shine while carving out his own space in the background. It's a dynamic that appears intentional, almost as if Barron understands the value of staying low-key in a family where being seen and heard is often the norm. At the same time, Barron's relationship with his mother seems to have played a pivotal role in shaping who he is. Melania has often been described as his closest confidant, someone who not only protects him but also ensures that he has a strong sense of identity. During their time in the White House, Melania went to great lengths to create a stable environment for Barron, even as the world around them became increasingly chaotic. She insisted on maintaining certain routines, from his schooling to his extracurricular activities, and shielded him from unnecessary media attention. This protective approach has undoubtedly contributed to Barron's grounded demeanor. One of the more fascinating aspects of Barron's personality is his ability to blend into the background while still maintaining a sense of presence. Whether it's at a public event or a family gathering, Barron rarely speaks, but his tall frame and composed expression make him impossible to ignore. It's a skill that has served him well, particularly in a world where every move is scrutinized. Unlike his siblings, who often court media attention, Barron seems to understand the power of staying quiet and letting his actions, or lack thereof, speak for him. This approach has led to some interesting dynamics within the Trump family. While Ivanka, Don Jr., and Eric often vie for influence and attention, Barron remains an outlier, operating on his own terms. It's a position that might seem isolating, but it also grants him a level of freedom that his siblings don't always enjoy. By choosing not to engage in the same high-stakes world of politics and business, Barron has managed to maintain a degree of privacy that is rare for someone with his last name. However, Barron's reserved nature doesn't mean he's disengaged. In fact, those who have observed him describe him as highly observant and thoughtful, someone who pays attention to the smallest details. This ability to quietly assess situations before making any moves is a trait that could serve him well in the future, whether he decides to step into the spotlight or continue operating behind the scenes. It's a strategic way of navigating a world where being a Trump comes with its own set of challenges and expectations. As Barron grows older, it's becoming increasingly clear that he is charting his own path, one that doesn't necessarily align with the traditional Trump playbook. He's not the outspoken businessman like his father, nor is he the polished public figure like Ivanka. Instead, he seems to be creating his own identity, one that values discretion and independence. It's a refreshing contrast in a family known for its bold personalities, and it suggests that Barron might just be the quiet force that balances out the Trump legacy. As Barron continued to grow both physically and figuratively, his place within the Trump family dynamic became even more intriguing. While he maintained his preference for staying out of the spotlight, his life outside the family, his schooling, friendships, and interests, started to garner quiet attention. For a teenager navigating not just adolescence but also the weight of the Trump name, Barron's ability to balance it all with grace is perhaps one of his most remarkable traits. Much of Barron's childhood revolved around New York City, where he attended elite private schools before his family's move to Washington, D.C., following Donald Trump's election. When Melania and Barron eventually joined Donald at the White House in 2017, it marked a significant shift in his life. Melania famously delayed their move to ensure that Barron could finish his school year at Columbia Grammar and Preparatory School, a decision that underscored her commitment to providing him with stability. This move wasn't just about logistics, it was about creating a sense of normalcy for her son amidst the upheaval of becoming the first family. Once in Washington, Barron enrolled at St. Andrew's Episcopal School in Maryland, another prestigious institution known for its rigorous academics and emphasis on character development. His time at St. Andrew's offered him a semblance of an ordinary teenage life, even as his father's presidency often cast a long shadow over the family. Unlike his predecessors in the White House, Barron largely avoided public engagements, opting instead to focus on his studies and extracurriculars. It was a deliberate choice that reflected both his personality and his family's efforts to protect his privacy. But as he grew older, questions about Barron's social life inevitably began to surface. What kind of friendships does he form, and how does he navigate relationships while living under such intense scrutiny? Those who have observed Barron from afar describe him as polite, reserved, and fiercely loyal to those he trusts. His friends are believed to be a small, tight-knit group of peers who understand the unique challenges of his life. While the details of these friendships remain private, it's clear that Barron values quality over quantity when it comes to the people in his inner circle. Of course, the topic of relationships extends beyond friendships, leading to one of the most curious aspects of Barron's teenage years, his dating life. Donald Trump, when asked about whether Barron has a girlfriend, has been notably cagey. "I'm not sure he's there yet," Donald once said, leaving the question open-ended. It's a rare moment of hesitation from a man who is usually quick to offer opinions on just about everything. While the world speculates about Barron's potential romances, it's likely that he approaches relationships with the same discretion that defines the rest of his life. Barron's privacy also extends to his online presence, or lack thereof. In an era where most teenagers are glued to their phones and social media accounts, Barron appears to be an outlier. There's little evidence to suggest that he actively participates in social media, a surprising fact given his generation's obsession with platforms like Instagram and TikTok. This absence is not only a testament to his preference for privacy, but also a stark contrast to the rest of his family, many of whom use social media as a tool to connect with supporters and shape their public personas. Despite his reserved nature, there's no denying that Barron is a product of his environment. Growing up in the Trump family means being exposed to wealth, power, and high expectations from a young age. Yet, Barron's ability to remain grounded speaks to the values instilled in him by his parents, particularly Melania. She has often emphasized the importance of education and discipline, ensuring that Barron understands the responsibilities that come with his last name. It's a balancing act that seems to have paid off as Barron continues to mature into a young man who defies many of the stereotypes associated with his family. For all the speculation about Barron's personal life, perhaps the most fascinating aspect of his story is the way he has managed to stay true to himself. In a family where public perception often takes precedence, Barron's authenticity stands out. He doesn't appear to be chasing headlines or seeking validation through public displays, and that alone sets him apart. Whether it's by design or simply a reflection of his personality, Barron has managed to carve out a unique identity that feels refreshingly different from the larger-than-life personas of his father and siblings. As Barron moves into adulthood, the world can't help but wonder what path he will choose. Will he follow in his father's footsteps and embrace the Trump brand? Or will he distance himself from the family legacy altogether? The answer, for now, remains a mystery, but his current trajectory suggests a young man who values independence and discretion. Perhaps that's why so many people are drawn to him, not because of what he says or does, but because of the intriguing silence that surrounds him. There's something undeniably strategic about the way Barron has approached life so far. By staying out of the spotlight, he has managed to avoid the controversies and public feuds that often plague the Trump family. It's a choice that reflects a level of maturity and self-awareness beyond his years. While others in the family might rely on their public personas to maintain relevance, Barron seems content to let his actions and his quiet confidence do the talking. For now, Barron Trump remains a figure of intrigue, a young man who is as much defined by what we don't know about him as by what we do. And perhaps that's the secret to his appeal. In a world obsessed with oversharing, Barron's ability to hold on to his privacy feels almost revolutionary. Whatever the future holds, one thing is certain: Barron Trump will continue to captivate and mystify, leaving us all eager to see what's next. As Barron transitions into adulthood, the intrigue surrounding him only grows. Standing at the crossroads of youth and the responsibilities that come with the Trump name, Barron faces a future filled with possibilities and challenges. While much of his life has been carefully kept out of the public eye, it's hard not to wonder how his upbringing and unique family dynamic will shape the choices he makes in the years to come. One of the most striking things about Barron is the way he seems to have mastered the art of subtle influence. Even as the youngest member of a family known for its boldness, he has carved out a space for himself where he can observe, learn, and occasionally contribute without drawing unnecessary attention. It's a trait that sets him apart from his older siblings, who have each embraced their roles as public figures in distinct ways. Ivanka has cultivated her image as a polished businesswoman, Don Jr. has leaned into his role as a fiery political commentator, and Eric has focused on the family's business ventures. Barron, however, has taken a different route, one marked by discretion and a clear preference for privacy. But will this low-key approach endure as he grows older? Many speculate that Barron's reserved demeanor might not be permanent. After all, he's still young, and the Trump name carries an undeniable gravitational pull. It's possible that he could step into the spotlight at some point, whether through business, politics, or another avenue entirely. If that happens, it will be interesting to see how he balances his personal values with the expectations that come with his family legacy. For now, Barron seems to be charting his own course, one that prioritizes independence and careful decision-making. This isn't to say he isn't deeply influenced by his family, he undoubtedly is, but there's a sense that he's taking the time to figure out what he wants for himself. Those who know him describe him as thoughtful and introspective, someone who doesn't rush into decisions but instead takes the time to weigh his options. It's a quality that will likely serve him well, no matter which path he ultimately chooses. His approach to privacy is another fascinating aspect of his character. In an age where many people, especially those in the public eye, feel compelled to share every aspect of their lives online, Barron has remained notably absent from social media. This decision not only reflects his preference for a more private existence, but also suggests a level of self-awareness that's rare for someone his age. By keeping his personal life off the internet, Barron has managed to maintain a sense of control over his narrative, something that's increasingly difficult to do in the digital age. As Barron's education continues, there's also speculation about whether he'll follow in his father's footsteps by entering the business world or pursuing a different path altogether. His academic achievements and interests have largely remained private, but those close to the family have hinted that Barron is both intelligent and hardworking. While it's too early to say whether he'll take up a role in the Trump organization or carve out his own niche, one thing is clear. Barron has options, and he's taking his time to explore them. In many ways, Barron's approach to life mirrors the strategic mindset his parents have instilled in him. Melania, with her emphasis on discipline and focus, has clearly played a pivotal role in shaping his character. Meanwhile, Donald's larger-than-life personality and emphasis on winning have likely influenced Barron in ways that may not yet be fully visible. It's a unique combination of influences that could either set him apart from the rest of the Trump family or position him as the next generation's quiet powerhouse. There's also the question of how Barron's relationship with his siblings will evolve as they all continue to grow into their respective roles. The Trump children have always been a prominent part of their father's legacy, each contributing to the family's narrative in different ways. Barron, however, has remained a step removed, watching from the sidelines as his older siblings take center stage. This dynamic could shift in the future, especially if Barron decides to step into a more active role within the family. Whether that means joining the Trump organization, pursuing politics, or forging his own path, his unique perspective and experiences could bring something entirely new to the table. For now, though, Barron seems content to remain an enigma. It's a position that not only protects his privacy, but also keeps people guessing. And in a world where the Trump family is often defined by its outspoken members, Barron's quiet demeanor feels almost revolutionary. It's a reminder that sometimes the most powerful presence is the one that doesn't need to be constantly seen or heard. As the youngest Trump prepares to step fully into adulthood, one thing is certain: his story is far from over. Whether he chooses to embrace the spotlight or continue navigating life behind the scenes, Barron Trump has already proven that he's more than just a name. He's a young man with the potential to shape his future on his own terms, guided by a blend of family influence and personal determination. And while the world waits to see what he'll do next, one thing is clear: whatever path he chooses, it will be uniquely his own. With that, we have reached the end of today's video. If you have come this far with us, be sure to check out other videos on the channel.